Okay, I'd just like to say a couple of words here before we start. I just came back to the Harrisburg Over organization after playing with Peel for a few seasons in 2013, and during the same time, Ed came up to help out with the band. Since then, I've been sort of under his tutelage as musical director, and he did a huge part in deciding what tunes we were going to play. This fall has been difficult for myself and the rest of the band, because when I think of a good tune for the band to play, I don't have somebody to shake their head saying, "Oh no, we can't play that." So this is a new set of 4/4 marches that we're going to play. It's including two tunes that we played last year, which were favorites of Ed's. A tune called McCrae Meadow, written by Charlie Glendinning, which is the theme tune or the anthem of the Grandfather Mountain Highland Games in North Carolina, as well as Saltman Palace, which is a tune Ed had found in the 3rd Scots Guards book that he was really fond of. So a couple other ones that we put together on our own. I hope everybody enjoys it, and thanks for coming. Ready, 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 march!
Well, first of all, a welcome. Can you hear me at the back okay? I'm breaking my back on the mic right now, but we'll get through to you. First of all, a welcome to so many people here today. The turnout is just fabulous, and I'm sure everyone in Ed's family will certainly appreciate it. And a second note, just before we start, I was so happy to see you applauding the performances. This is going to be a celebration today, and so please keep up with it. Now, a special welcome today to Ed's family, Brother Jeff and Marion Neigh, his partner Darlene and her son Ryan, Ed's children Scott, Janet, Catherine, and David, and their mother Margaret, and also a special welcome to cousin Dave. You know, when you look around right now, I'm looking at this with the great attendance that we have as being sort of an extended family. We're all here for one purpose, but we've all come from similar backgrounds. We enjoy the music, we enjoy our friends around us. In a way, this is sort of a reunion of sorts for a very special person in our lives. As pipers, drummers, family, and friends, we seldom get the opportunity to honor those closest to us. In Ed's case, the Piper Society of Ontario had the foresight to award a life membership at Maxwell in 2011. In a way, we pay our tribute after the fact, but never too late. His family is well aware of our affection for Ed, and I can assure you that will never change. During the proceedings today, we have a slideshow going over to your right, my left. Feel free just to pop in, have a look at it at any time you wish. It'll be going on through most of the performances. As musicians, our performers today are paying tribute in the way they know best, through their music. And I'm sure Ed would appreciate this far more than words. As a lifelong student of the great music, Ed's teaching, mentoring, and passion reached the world of pipers from Canada, throughout the USA, and even to the UK. His was a lifelong study of the great music that never waned, nor did his friendship and inspiration, as many of us have known Ed since he was a teenager. So today, let's think back to all those great times with Ed, relax in those pleasant memories, and enjoy the performances of some of his closest friends. Ed was always upbeat, so let's make this a celebration, our way of giving thanks to Ed and his family for sharing with all of us over the years. So applaud and appreciate our time together today. I'd like to introduce to you right now, Bob Worrell.
Thanks very much. Let's start with an old Gallic air and a 3/4 of Bruce Gandy's, Francis Gandy's Diamond Year. To Darlene and David and Tyler Bridge and Ken for weaving it together today. Thanks so much for all your organization to make this happen. Today, as Ken said, it's to celebrate, and it's a day to remember, share, and above all, have a good laugh. Todd said to me a couple of weeks ago, he said, have you written anything down, given any thought to what you would say in between some tunes today? And I said, well, I haven't put anything down, but I have a bit of an idea of some things I'd like to share with folks here today. And he said, can I give you some advice? And I said, sure, what's that? He said, what would Ed tell you to do? And I heard that gravelly pirate voice saying, don't get bloody maudlin and dramatic and sad on us. And that's what we're going to hopefully try to do over the next few minutes. And I think that's what he would be saying. I think, the obituaries that we've seen really capture the essence of this once-in-a-lifetime friend. His passion for the music, unparalleled. His passion for teaching. And I would hang out with Ed, the Gaelic College, we taught together for so many years, and I'd be kind of downbeat and this and that, whatever. And it came time to go into a class with these young kids in there. And it was like this spark happened, and he came to life. Truly, he was a man who was born to teach. He did it for a profession, and then he continued to do it after he retired from that profession. A marvelous teacher. A brave person, never afraid to take a risk. And, we know all the history of Ed and bagpipe tuners and all of that. He was the first person to kind of pioneer it and everything. But and what he did in terms of medleys and medley construction. But he was a pioneer in many other ways. I know our Prime Minister, our new Prime Minister, has a cabinet with 50% women, and of course we were questioned on that. He said, well, it's 2015. When I think back to the Guelph Pipe Band and the number of women in the Guelph Pipe Band back in the 1970s, Ed was way, way ahead of Justin Trudeau. Way, way ahead. And you only have to cast your eyes over to the left here. When Ken Eller's wife, Diane, a terrific player, she couldn't even play in the Clan McFarlane Pipe Band. She had to go to the Guelph Pipe Band with Ed. And I think I see Kelly here, and his sister-in-law, and she had to go to Erskine. Okay, but Ed welcomed women into the pipe band, and he shared some great stories about that, surrounding that whole composition of the Guelph Pipe Band. Other things that you may not have known if you hadn't had a chance to maybe see him in action in the band or anything like that, or teach with him in the summer program. Sometimes in the summer program, you do a little mass band thing at the end of the day and say, where's the bass drummer? Where's the bass drummer? And Ed'd be sitting there. He was a closet bass drummer. He loved it. Any chance to strap on that bass, and away he went, and he absolutely, absolutely loved it. Did you know that when you traveled with him and you go by duty free, he could never walk past a duty free? And he would always go for the bargain. There could be 2 bottles of scotch, and one might be maybe not the best, but it had, if you bought it, you got the extra little backpack or hat or whatever. That was the bargain. I said, Ed, it's not that good a scotch. He says, yeah, but I get the free hat with it. And he'd look at you with these intense blue eyes. You're just like, gotta have it. So every single time, an absolute bargain hunter. And I know his family could probably share lots of stories of that. The sense of humor, unparalleled. Just as Ken said, the positive person. He brought a positive attitude to judging. He brought positive attitude to his teaching and his conversations with you. And you always left feeling really, really upbeat. And chatting with Jeff on the phone a while ago, and he says, band practices were always fun. And that's what it was with it. It was always good fun. We went to New York many, many years ago, and Ed and Margaret, Todd, and myself, my good friend Betty Matheson from Cape Breton. And Betty had never been to the States, let alone New York. She always wanted to go to New York. I said, well, what do you want to do? We kind of planned the whole trip, and Betty had her wish list. Ed, biggest kid in the whole trip, and we all know he was a big kid at heart. You know, when he walked into the giant toy store, the biggest toy store in the world, Toys R Us, he came to life. He was running all over the place like a big kid. Betty, once again, Ed, way ahead of his time, Betty said, I want to see a transvestite. I said, what? She said, we don't have them in Cape Breton. We must have them in New York. Well, I'm sure they do. So all weekend long, we were there for the long weekend, looking around, whatever, no real luck. Sunday, Betty also wanted to go to the Easter parade. I said, Betty, I think it's just in the song. I don't think it exists. No, there has to be an Easter parade. So Fifth Avenue, of course. I said, well, we'll park ourselves somewhere on Fifth Avenue. We'll meet you. She went to church. She came back raving about the music, and sure enough, they had it barricaded off. And the Easter parade does exist, and people just stroll along in their Sunday finery, and that's the Easter parade. And these women are all dressed up in these fancy feathered hats and these heels up like this. And I took a look, looked at Todd, we looked at Ed, Betty saying, isn't this wonderful? And Ed said, Betty, you just hit the mother lode. I'll tell you a couple more stories in a second, but I'll play a couple more tunes for you. Thank you. Just a little waltz of my own, and then an old tune from the 1800s, a quick step that I found in one of the old publications. I think we've got a couple of pictures. I gave Ken 2 or 3 pictures to put up, and of course this was the year that 3 of us, Ed and myself and Uncle Ray, adjudicated the Livingston, and Bill was our MC that night. Of course, we had to, the request was to dress up in formal attire. And I want you to look carefully at Ed's face. I think he enjoys wearing formal attire. That's the Ed Neigh growl. The growl that was always done with humor, with a smile behind it. I remember one time we were adjudicating a contest, a band contest. It wasn't very good. One band after another, and there were significant issues. And we would walk past each other and go back to our respective tables. And he had a way of kind of communicating, we both did, communicating with each other what we thought of the performance. And I just kind of would give the wide-eyed look. Ed would cross his eyes, and he'd kind of go. And Ed would go until. These are the images I will carry with me to my grave of this wonderful friend. And when the contest was over and we handed our sheets in, not very good, was it? He says, oh, it's bloody awful. And he's growling and he's snarling and everything else. And after a bit, I started laughing. He says, what's so funny? And I said, you know who we're sounding like? He says, who? I said, we're sounding like those 2 old guys in the balcony in the Muppets. And he got all animated. He says, Waldorf and Statler, I always love those guys. He was one of those guys. He truly was one of those guys. That voice, that incredible voice. You know, I think all of us only hope to aspire to certain things in life. One is to be true to yourself. Boy, was he true to himself. He was so genuine, he was so open, he was so caring. Loved kids, loved teaching. It was all about the music with him. It was all about friendship and loyalty to all of those around him, to his family, to all his friends. And we celebrated our 30th year together back at the start of June. Mentioned it to Ed and Darlene couldn't come because she was shuttling kids all over the place and the band practice thing and everything. And but sure enough, Ed, getting ready for his second hip replacement, came in. He had a cane and everything. I said, "Oh my God, man, you made it!" And he said, "I wouldn't have missed this for the world." That was the loyalty to his friends and the acceptance he had with all his friends. Never judgmental. Rosemary and Bill Hilbert were there that day, and Rosemary said, he sat up there in your sun deck all day and he held a court, and it was like he was the senior statesman for what we do. So he made me laugh, and I know he made all of you laugh, and he gave so much music to all of you, and I love talking about music with him, and a once-in-a-lifetime individual. We'll never see the likes of him again. But all of those thoughts, all of that, I treasure, and I know all of you will too, for the rest of our lives. And thank you, Ed and I, for who you were and what you gave us. I'll finish off with one quick little tune. a couple more pictures, and one in particular I want to share with you. Can you go to the next one? And you thought that, you know, the pirate voice, a little more to it than just the voice. He loved dressing up. And one year at the Gaelic College, of course, the instructors would do an instructor's recital. And then at the end, we'd all come back and do something stupid, something goofy. And the Highland dance instructors, of course, they love to get us to really look stupid. And the Highland dance instructors decided that they were going to choreograph something for us. And it was during the era of the Spice Girls, and they were at an all-time high. So they were choreographing a dance for us to the Spice Girls. So the day, we kind of had it off, not really. The day we were supposed to do it, they came in and said, okay, we have to run through the number one more time, and they had outfits. Outfits. So they dressed us up, and I think we can go. Hugh Cameron's quite fetching in that purple. He was Pepper Spice. And because of the red hair, at least what was still red on top, was Ginger Spice. Doug Stronach was Rosemary Spice. I can't remember, oh, Ken was Pepper Spice. That's Ken there on the right, in case you didn't know. And I have to admit, I'm in between Ed and Ken, and they nicknamed me Cinnamon Spice. That was with an S. And thank you. And I found this picture a number of years ago. We scanned it, and I sent it off to all the guys. Threats of lawsuits ensued. I'll have your house. We made a pact between the group of us. This picture would never be shown publicly until one of us went to that great pipe band in the sky. So today, it gets its debut. Today, and that was from a couple years ago at the Kingston Games, and that is, I think, the pose, the smile, enjoying life that we will always, always, always remember. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Can you hear us at the back? We've had a little bit of a sound issue. It's okay, Dylan? Great. Well, now the secret's out about that photo down in Cape Breton. Quite a time we had down there, and the sort of the Five Musketeers. We went down every single year to teach at the Gaelic College, and the dancing instructors took an active part in what we did as well. So I'm a shade embarrassed, but not really. As many of you know, Ed spent an awful lot of time in the United States, and I'm very pleased to see here tonight, or this afternoon, several people, some from Michigan, some as far away as Chicago, and we certainly appreciate you coming. He spent every summer for at least 4 weeks in North Carolina teaching at the school there, and we've been very fortunate. Bill Cottle, who taught with him, and is also director of Scottish Heritage at St. Andrews College in North Carolina, has sent along this note. Unfortunately, Bill couldn't be with us today, and I'll read it directly from Bill's letter. Though he was known and loved by all of you here in Canada, Ed and I had a lot of friends which he made through 15 years of teaching in the southern United States. At the North American Academy of Piping in Vallecrucis, North Carolina. When you add up 15 years of 4 weeks each summer, I had the good fortune of spending a bit over a year of my life with Ed. His encouragement for me as a piper through these years was something I'll always treasure. He had more faith in me than I did in myself. I'll always remember his comments after playing recitals at the school. That was a good tune, or I like what you did with that tune. as well as his encouragement to keep on competing despite whatever difficulties I might have felt. He would say things like, "You can out-bagpipe 90% of them just with your instrument alone," and that was it. Comments like that over the years meant a great deal to me. A relatively unknown Southern piper who will never be one of the greats like him. I can only hope that somehow some of Ed has rubbed off on me, as he was truly one of a kind. Ed was quite a character for us to be around during those summer months. For one thing, he was such a great storyteller and historian. He could tell you anecdotes about famed pipers and their exploits all night long, night after night. We dropped down many drams together, telling or listening to jokes in Sandy Jones's room, and it was in one of these sessions that Ed introduced us to the gourmet pairing, and get this, chocolate chip cookies with Lafroig whiskey. Whoa. It was this fitting in and good nature that led to the creation of the scholarship fund in his honor at the school. On our last Thursday night together this summer, after our closing Cayley of the week, a lot of folks were gathered in the main building, socializing, having drinks and snacks, playing small pipes, telling jokes. Several were gathered around Ed and heard him tell this joke, and it meant something, or it went something like this. And I can recall Ed telling me this story many times. He says, there was a piper who died, and when he was met by St. Peter at the pearly gates, the piper asked, "Do you have any bagpipes in heaven?" "Why, yes," St. Peter replied. "Oh, do you have any good pipers here?" asked the piper. "The best," replied St. Peter. "Do you have any pipe bands in heaven?" asked the piper. "Of course," replied St. Peter. "Are there any grade 1 pipe bands here?" asked the piper. "We've got a fabulous grade 1 band," St. Peter replied. "So who is the pipe major of this band?" asked the piper. "Why, God, of course." I'm sure Ed is the pipe sergeant of that band. Though Canada will claim him, there's no doubt that Ed should be remembered as having a very distinct influence on piping, particularly on pibroch playing in the American South as well. And those were Bill's words to me earlier this week. For those unacquainted with pibroch, as mentioned by Bill, it is our classical music. For most, it might be a grasp to understand, but for Ed, it was his passion, his lifelong experience, his raison d'etre, compelling, thrilling, and demanding. He was a student and a teacher all his life, every day, every single hour. You will hear some pibroch today, and to quickly appreciate it, understand that the tunes are extended, based on an early theme followed by several rhythmic variations on that theme, increasing in intensity until the end. In true Celtic tradition, the player reprises the theme to the finish. I'd like to introduce to you Jim McGilvery.
Good afternoon. For those of you who knew Ed well, his abiding passion was pibroch, and no celebration of Ed's life would be right without some pibroch. I'm going to play a tune that I believe, at least in my time as Ed, was his favorite pibroch. It's the tune he won the Dunvegan medal with in Skye around 1971. It's a very melodious tune. It's called Too Long in Condition. Too Long in This Condition. He taught me the tune around that time, and I've played it ever since, and I hope what I play now will please him. I'm just going to blow the pipes down for a minute with a snippet from another pibroch, and then I'll tune the pipes and play Too Long in This Condition. Thank you. Every time I came to this end of the floor, my attention would be attracted to the screen. This is an emotional gathering for me. It meant a lot to me in my younger years, and I believe that tune was maybe that might have been the second Pebrick he ever taught me. And Ed and I had quite a pupil-teacher relationship going. I was extremely lucky to encounter Ed on the strength of my mother's outgoing personality. But I gotta say, Ed was kind of lucky to have me too, because I did absolutely everything he asked me to do. If he said, go away, and if you possibly can, get this learned by next week, I came back and it was learned. I have a firm belief that when you pick someone as your instructor, when they tell you to do something, you go and you do it, no matter how hard it is. And everything Ed asked me to do, I did. And I also tried to stay ahead of the curve. His enthusiasm and my enthusiasm really blended together, and I think I brought the best out in him as a teacher, and he certainly brought the best out of me as a pupil. And I look at pupils I've had in the last 30 or 40 years, and I often think, you know, I'd really like to have a pupil who was at least half the pupil I was to Ed. And I wonder why don't I get many pupils who are half the people I was to Ed, and maybe it's because I'm half the teacher Ed was to me. So I keep working at it. There are lots of great memories for me here today. I'm seeing people here who I see people come in the door and I think, I used to know someone who kind of looked like that. And then they introduce themselves to me and I realize that I haven't seen them for 25 or 30 years, so maybe more. To see people here who were connected with Ed in the 1960s, and their connection was important enough for them to be here today and for them to be at the funeral in August, that says an awful lot about Ed. I see other things you're going to hear later. We have a little resurrection of the Guelph Pipe Band that we put together, and to play some of that music again takes me back, and to look across the circle and see a set of circa 1920 cocos wood and ivory bagpipes that Dylan Whitmore is playing right now, that for 10 years I looked across the circle in the Guelph Pipe Band and saw them on Ed Neigh's shoulder. I'm happy that they're being played by an up-and-coming great young player, but I sure miss seeing Ed under those pipes. I was going to have more anecdotes, but I thought some of them are probably more appropriate to another time. I remember times. One of the stories I decided I wouldn't tell was about years ago waking up and going to a hotel or a motel on games day. In the room would be Ed and myself, two beds, Ed and myself and Jeff and maybe somebody else. And the alarm would go off at 6 in the morning and someone would turn it off and we all just sort of lay there. And you knew we were awake, but now we had to roust ourselves for a hot day at the games, and we needed something to get us going. And, this is kind of a man thing, okay? Invariably, to break the silence, somebody would fart. And then there'd be 30 or 40 seconds and someone else would follow suit. There would be no other noise. Usually a farting guys laugh, right? But we knew what was coming. So this would carry on for 3 or 4 minutes, and then the master would chime in. And Jeff, do you remember you know I'm not making up. Do you remember what we used to call Ed's magnificent farts? Remember the crescendo fart? Anyway, enough said. They were a work of art, and they were technically very intricate. And they would always get us laughing and up out of bed all the time. And I knew I couldn't say that in the eulogy. And I knew I couldn't say it in my Pipes Drums article, so I had to say it somewhere. You look like a pretty good group. So. Thank you for being here in Ed's memory, and I'm thrilled that I was asked to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. Well, Jim and Bob have alluded to Ed's great sense of humor, and I've got a letter here, and forgive me, Debbie Walpole, if I read your letter to Darlene this past week. Just another instance of Ed at his best, or in perhaps this case, Debbie Walpole at her best. And I'll read you this letter. In 2007, my son Glenn and I traveled with the Peel Regional Police Pipe Band on our first band trip. We flew to Fredericton for the New Brunswick Highland Games. It seemed that everyone from Ontario was staying in the same hotel, so there was much socializing in and around the games. Although I had seen Ed Neigh at games in Ontario, I had never had a conversation with him. His judging face, and I think you can appreciate this, we saw this already today, his judging face intimidated me. Well, it seems that Ed had traveled to Fredericton from another judging commitment in the U.S., and his luggage was lost. He arrived in Fredericton, but his uniform didn't. On the first day of the games, Ed resorted to judging in his blue jeans and shirt that he traveled in. The weather was extremely hot and humid, the kind that has competitors fainting from the heat. At the post-game social time after the first day of the games, I found myself beside Ed. To begin the conversation, are you ready for this? I said, "You look pretty hot out there, Ed." What do you think Ed's reply would be? This is typical. "Do you mean that in a good way?" Poor Debbie, she says, "I was mortified." Well, we got to know Ed better in the last few years and found out that his judge's face was really not so intimidating after all. It hit a huge heart and a caring individual who had lots of encouragement for the many players who played for him. And he had a great sense of humor. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Ed's son David with Tyler Bridge and the Steel City Rovers.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for being here. Now, Tyler and I are going to play some tunes on border pipes and fiddle for you now, with Mark Fletcher and Jess Gold joining us from Steel City Rovers on guitar and drums. This year, I had the honor of being McDougall Cottage's musician in residence, and as part of that series, I was very glad to have the chance to share a stage with my father one last time. We did a concert on Scottish music, specifically on fiddle and bagpipe and drum. Tyler and myself played the music, and my dad was MC and historical expert. This set is a mix of tunes I played with Dad, either in performance or just for fun, and some other tunes which Tyler and I played at the concert at McDougall Cottage. The first one is a waltz, written by Jerry Holland, called Lament for Herbie McLeod. Then we'll play Donald McLean's Farewell to Owen, Jack Daniel's Reel, High Road to London, Brenda Stubbert's Reel, and Jenny Dang River.
We're going to take a brief intermission right now. Get and stretch your legs. The bar is open and there's food at the back. But stay close by. We'll be bringing on our next performer in a very short time. Thank you.